Part 1 brought us a new generation of heroes. Echo, Axel, Cayman, Dust, and Sagashi participated in the Tournament of Heroes to become part of the Order of the Tidal Blades.
And now they are. Part 2 will have them focus to save Naviri by venturing into the fold, uncovering mysteries, and growing and developing as characters.
And of course, battling the evil monsters that are within the fold.
Hello everybody, my name is Ilya.
And my name is Tyler. Together we make up Cooperative, a couple that loves to play board games.
And be Tidal Blades.
Bwom, 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 bwom.
Today we're coming to you with a Kickstarter sponsored preview of Tidal Blades, Rise of the Unfolders, which is part 2 in the series.
This game is published by Skybound Tabletop. It's designed by Tim and Ben Eisner, and the wonderful art is done by Mr. Cuddington.
You'll take the role of a Tidal Blade who just graduated, ready to go into the Unfold and contribute to saving Naviri. Now the Fold is unstable, and it's your role to figure out why. Now this game is a narrative campaign game that's done through 18 different scenarios. Your character will progress and build their own deck and have a unique hexagonal grid system in which they'll act to defeat enemies and progress through their ventures into the Fold. Will they save Naviri? Alright, let's get this box out of here. It's taking up too much space.
Woohoo, elbows on the tables.
Elbows on the tables. Well, let's dive in and give you a little bit of a sneak peek of what Tidal Blades Rise of the Unfolders has in store for you.
And what better way to do that than to take a look at what a turn might look like.
So as a quick note, this is a prototype of the game, so what you see here today may be different than the final product. We're here, it's the Banner Festival, and all of a sudden the spine squid tentacles have invaded. Now you'll begin each scenario by selecting a power card and placing it into the center of your Nexus grid. Now power cards have ongoing abilities that will help you in each scenario. Now the objective here is to get rid of the tentacles. So Axel and Echo will work together to make that happen. Now at the beginning of each turn, each player will select one of their 4 cards to play. They'll place it face down and then get ready to reveal all at the same time, alongside with the spine squid tentacles. Now this will determine initiative for who is going to go. Now if you take a look at the initiative board, you have starting initiative, and based on the cards that you play, your initiative will move up or down, making it a little bit faster or maybe a little bit slower. And this will progress throughout the scenario. Now once the initiative is set, it is time to go. Now Echo takes the first turn. Her shells move to her quantum reservoir, and they can be used for additional free actions. She takes the card that she's played and places it onto her Nexus grid. Depending where she's placed it, she will choose a row or a column of actions to take. That's right, combos. Now there's a variety of symbols here. You can move, attack, build up your shell shield, and focus and spirit. Now Echo will move and attack in this turn, ranged of course. Attacks are done by rolling dice. You'll take the dice equal to the attack value here, and one more due to the action in the Nexus grid. Now dice have 3 symbols: hits, focus, and tides. Hits are the damage that's dealt. Focus can be converted to hits by using the focus of the character, and tides are reflective of the advantage and disadvantage on your attacks. Woohoo! We killed the tentacle, which means we get a reward. Now it's the turn of the tentacles. They attack for 2. They're also ranged and they attack Echo here. Their dice is rolled, which can boost their attack or lead it to miss. Now Echo ends up taking damage here, and unfortunately she becomes wounded. She'll draw a wound card and place it on her Nexus grid. Now this will stay here until the end of the scenario and cause her to get a wound on her character sheet. And that's the basics. Now throughout the scenario there's a couple of things that might happen as well. If your Nexus grid has a full line, column, or row, it's discarded. This way you'll cycle through different combos and various card combinations. Now you also have to collaborate with your team members. Based on your position on the board, you're able to flank, which gains you advantage and can help you attack monsters more efficiently. Now later on in the game, you'll get goals and items, which will help you progress your character and develop their skills so they become mightier and stronger as the game progresses.
This includes getting new cards for your deck, new powers that you'll be able to start the scenarios with, and more.
And that's the general gist of the game.
Exactly. So if you liked Tidal Blades 1, or Part 1, this is Part 2. So we want to take a quick look at the comparisons. What are the differences? What are the similarities? Let's highlight them for you.
So I think beyond the art and the characters, I think these are two different games.
Oh, they really are.
Yeah. So Tidal Blades Part 1 essentially takes you as this younger character of the ones that we see here. And it's more of a worker placement.
Well, it's like a dice builder worker placement where you're essentially trying to complete these different goals so that you can like prove yourself worthy to become part of the Tidal Blades. Part 2, you're already a part of the Order of the Tidal Blades, and now it's time to prove yourself on the fold.
Yeah, and this is a campaign scenario-based game, which Tidal Blades Part 1 is not. So you're going through various scenarios, following the journey of these characters, building a deck, playing their deck on this fun little Nexus grid.
Yes.
And adjusting it in various ways with items, with different powers, and growing as your character as well.
Now they did carry forward a lot of the things that we're familiar with in Tidal Blades Part 1, like the shell shield, for example, the way that you use shells. Fruit is still a thing there, but it's based on something
a little different.
Yeah. But really the fruit for the purposes of this world, like the city of, or the land of, what is it? Naviri. The way they do trading is through fruit. And you'll use the fruit to heal yourself because they're yummy. And then you'll also be able to use the fruit to purchase yourself items as you progress through the game.
Yeah, a lot of the symbols are similar as well. Like the spirit and focus in that aspect is very similar as the first game as well. But I think the heart of it is very different in my opinion. I think here we're really taken into that narrative journey. It allows us to kind of look deeper into the characters and really understand their motives, what they're trying to do, but as well as experience a story that we initially got invested in with Tidal Blades 1.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely more of a deep dive. The characters obviously will grow as you play through the game, which is super nice because you get more invested.
Exactly.
And then the other thing I'd mention is that we're familiar with the dice that you build in Part 1. They kind of carry that forward when it comes to attacking in Part 2, where you're not necessarily building it those dice, but you're using the same style dice to score yourself the ability to deal damage.
It's a good point. It's kind of like the training has paid off, and now you're ready to attack and really be the Tidal Blade that you're meant to be.
So you definitely alluded to this before, but let's talk a little bit more about the prevalence of character progression in this game.
Oh, I love the characters from the first parts, and it's so neat to actually see them and their personality really shine in this game. Because with every scenario, there's a dialogue and there's a little kind of intro to the scenario, and you really get to see the personality of each of the characters. But not only that, you get to grow the character as it goes.
Yeah, exactly. And like the way the scenarios are set up is it's as if you're with all 4 of the characters, or 5.
And Sagashi's there as well.
Yeah, but like it feels so interesting because all of the characters are definitely fitting their role that you would have kind of guessed that their role would be in Part 1. So it's very, very nice.
There's a really strong team dynamic, and it could definitely be like a little TV show that you would watch and see like, oh look, there's Echo and Cayman at it again.
Oh yeah, I am like 100% invested in the characters, and I think it's very nice when they take like the ability of what the characters were doing in Part 1, move it into Part 2, and then like set this scenario up where it's like, oh, Echo, for example, is like on this huge like mind grind where she's a genius, and she just like knows so much about the realm or the fold, and she's just here for it. She's obviously smaller, so she's scared of a lot of these bigger things that are coming at her, and it's cool to be able to be like, oh well, I'm just gonna stand in the back and try to utilize all my abilities, or I'm going to do the total opposite and try to be this tough little Axolite. I think they're called Betalites and Betalods in this.
Yeah, I think so.
But
yes.
Yeah. So it's very cool. And then like to that point is like you'll eventually through the scenarios unlock goals that you have to get, and they lead you down 2 separate paths, which are very like you can kind of choose. You end up from our experience playing it, you end up going down both. But you can choose and cater yourself to which one you'd want to focus on.
And one naturally kind of flows more than the other. Like Axel, for example, he can either be a show-off or he could be a team player. And based on the goals in the mission, you can kind of continue. And it kind of shows in the personality as well, because you really get to see the character progress and grow.
And then, like, on top of that, like, your ability cards will get updated. Or one of the things I really appreciated about our playthrough through the game was you could get rid of cards. So there are eventual moments where you may have a card that's exactly the same to one you just unlocked, but it's way stronger, and cycling through your deck is a lot easier when you have less cards in it. So what better way to do that than take the opportunity to cut cards from your deck when you're given the chance, and then like put new cards in so that it's a way better deck.
Absolutely. That's the characters. I guess let's talk a little bit about the scenarios. And how do the scenarios progress? How did you find the prototype version of this game had 6 scenarios that we could take a look at, and we played all 6 of them. The whole game will have 18.
Yeah, and then like a side note on that too is those have the scenarios that you go through. You'll get different choices throughout those scenarios that will take you down different paths. So we'll like, it's like an A versus B side kind of thing.
Well, there's outcomes. Like sometimes you'll succeed in a way, but sometimes you won't. Obviously, there's elements where you have to kind of get this scenario and you have to beat it to kind of continue. There's a way to kind of reset and go. But sometimes if something does happen, it'll progress your story in different ways. So there are kind of multiple paths you can take.
Yeah, so the first thing I would say about the scenario breakdown is I really appreciate how they started off because you start off very baseline. So you're not very familiar with how a narrative style game like this would work, where you're trying to focus on your was it Nexus grid? Yeah, where you really like, that's the main piece and mechanic that you really want to be focused on is how to run those rows and columns. And the first scenario, basically that's what you do is you focus on what's going on your grid and then what's also happening in the story. So how you tackle that is up to you. But then in the next scenario,
well, it's thematic as well, because you've taken all the training and now you're applying it and you're actually using the powers of the Tidal Blades. But as Tyler was saying, in the next scenario you're given goals, and there's slow progression that is dealt with in the scenarios to actually teach you about the game as well. It'll teach you like how items work and how jumping works and how like maybe these rapids. So like each scenario felt very different. Out of the 6 that we've played, each of them has added a certain element or a certain twist that allows you to focus on a different way. Like one of them, for example, you have to defeat everybody, but one of them you just gotta run and you gotta get out of there and kind of try to trick everybody and make sure that you survive and get to the end.
Yeah, and some characters have specific things that make them really good at doing like the all-out battles, or like maybe they're more strategic and they've got a plan, like how they're going to move. So it's very cool to like see it all come together. Specifically in the scenarios, I just like that idea of like building, making like this building block of like fundamentals and then pushing it even farther to make the scenarios better and more complicated, so that it's not this like same one note easy game throughout.
Definitely layers and complexity. And last but certainly not least is there is elements where you are able to grow. So there's what's called a Naviri interlude, where you visit the land of Naviri and essentially level up in different aspects. So you'll gain potentially items, different fruits, like get some of the abilities a little bit higher through some of the experience that you've acquired. But I foresee that this will be a theme in the game as it progresses. You'll kind of keep coming back to the land and leveling up a little bit and growing a little bit to make yourself a little bit stronger for the scenarios to come.
Yeah, exactly. And the cool thing about that like interlude is it prepares you to like develop the character how you feel you want it to be developed, because there's so many different things, right, to go through. You get to like choose if you want to go down your show off path, your teamwork path, or just like simply like upgrade your health. So it's like things like that really they're small little critical decisions that you get to make throughout the game that make you feel more invested in the character that you're playing.
And there's a lasting impact as well. So I guess overall, what makes this game special? Like why would somebody play this game?
I would say strictly like the world building that is done in this. I think when I first started talking about part 1 Tidal Blades, the world is what brought me in, the characters is what kept me, and part 2 builds on that even more. Like, it's so neat to be able to like pick a character up from a game previously played and be like, oh my goodness, I love Echo. Like, I'm bringing her back into my life, and now I get to watch her grow even more than I did before. So that's what I have an appreciation for with this game.
Yeah, it really drew me in for a similar reason. I think just the narrative and the story of it. And I think when we first got the prototype, I'm like, we basically have to play this through because I'm so invested as what happens next. And it really feels very thematic, everything that you do.
Oh, yeah.
And like you're rescuing somebody and they're struggling, so you have to get a berry to them to really heal them to make sure that they survive this scenario. But at the same time, there's a huge monster right there. You're trying to kind of balance everything and be really critical about it. It never feels like you're kind of just pushing and attacking and doing this and doing this. Like everything feels really intentional and purposeful, which is something that I really appreciate in this game.
I never noticed how, well, I did notice eventually, but that's why it'll come back to like the scenario progression. I really appreciated that. But the Nexus grid, like placing them where you place them is like relatively pretty important because you can, because you have to do the whole row or column. And when you do that, you get certain things. Sometimes activating cards actually are bad, but you still have to do it. And then it can get kind of frustrating, but at the same time, because that's happening, that's part of the difficulty of the game. And I think like the way they did that grid is very unique and very creative. I don't think I've seen that.
Yeah, and I think I found like even through the 6 scenarios, I got very attached. I played Axel. And
I obviously played Echo.
his backstory was essentially that he's looking for his mother, who was lost in the fold 15 years ago.
Yeah, she was a Tidal Blade.
And it's so interesting because I'm like, is that gonna kind of continue, and is the story gonna progress in that way? Because there's hints to it, and you can see the personality there as well. But in general, I'm just so excited. Each scenario brought something different, and if the rest of the scenarios kind of follow the same innovative method, I'm really excited to see what happens next, because I feel like there's not a single piece of content here that was like, oh, I guess that does that. It intrigued me and grabbed me right from the start.
The only other thing I guess I'll say is that it is very different from Tidal Blades 1. Trying to make that leap when I initially saw the game was a little bit difficult for me, because I was already familiar with what they were doing in part 1, so I wanted to go in thinking it would be more like part 1, but it's not, and I don't think you're supposed to do that at all. So a heads up for
I guess
folks.
if you're going into it being like, I want the same mechanic game, and you're in it mainly for the mechanics, this is gonna turn your world upside down 180 degrees a little bit. There's a little bit of similarities there, but I think the core of the game is quite different.
Yeah, and like we said at the very beginning of this section, is like, we were here for the world and the characters that were in it.
So this project is coming to Kickstarter February 22nd. So 22/02/22. Because it is
02/22/2022.
Because part 2.
02/22/2022. 02/22/2022.
So you can check out the project down below. Follow it along, get ready, because I'm genuinely very excited for what it's gonna have to bring.
Yeah, I need more characters in my life. I need these characters in my life specifically. I just want to read a book about this.
I want to play the rest of it.
Just to clarify, all the stuff that you've seen here today is a prototype, so things might change, things might be slightly different, but again, check out the Kickstarter, see if it's something you're interested in, and maybe we'll be chatting to you about it soon. Who knows?
Well, thank you so much. If you like what you saw, hit that subscribe button, hit that thumbs up, and do all the variety of YouTube things that you gotta do to support us, because we really, really appreciate it. And if you're excited about Tidal Blades, tell us who your favorite character is from the first one and who you'll likely play if you do back this one.
Exactly. But until next time, this is us riding some waves out to 02/22/2022. Bye.
02/22. Bye.